Hello and welcome back to On the Workbench. Today we're taking a look at the Toughbuilt utility scraper knife. I've seen a fair bit of buzz about this on social media, so I went down to the store and picked this up with my own money to be able to take a look at this for you guys to either show you how well it is or tell you to save your own money. So I'm excited to take a look at this because the promise is amazing. The idea that you could have a knife that's both a knife and a scraper seems amazing, and the packaging even allows you to demo this. And the store, so you can see there's the scraper, and there it is as a knife and retracted. Comes with some extra blades. This is made in China. And you do have to apparently register to get your lifetime warranty. I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of that. I'd rather it just be warrantyable just on its face. If you've got the tool, it's warrantyable, just like the good old-fashioned craftsman days, but I know those days might be over. So now to get this out of the packaging, there's a zip tie at the bottom of the package. But oddly enough, you need another knife or something to be able to get rid of. Allows you to remove the knife. And then tucked away in the packaging here is another set of blades. And so there's our blades. And we'll set that aside. So now if we look at the knife here, it's got a nice rubberized feel on the edges that are going to be where your palm's going to grab. And then you simply be able to grab your thumb to be able to click this into scraper, let it go, push it back, flip it back to knife, let it go all the way back, and you're done. So when I'm comparing this, my trusty go-to knife for about the last 8 or 9 years has been this Milwaukee. I don't even know what the model number is on this, but it's got a multi-position stop, a scraper there, and onboard blade storage, and tool-free blade change. This to me has been my go-to tool. As you can see that it's been abused. I've had 2 or 3 of these because I just drop them, lose them, and just beat them up. And well, they do take a licking, and they work great. So if I look at these side by side, they're about the same length. This also has an extra little trick on the back end here, and that is a paint can opener, because I think the intended market for this is if you need to be able to scrape paint off glass or something similar. So you got a can opener back there too. I would imagine you might be able to use that for opening a drink. And one of the first things here that I'm noticing is that if you need to only put the blade out just a little bit, say you're opening a box and you don't want to get too much of the blade out, but you need to cut through just the tape. On this knife here, I can put out just the tip. On this knife here, there's not a positive lock anywhere back here on the retraction. If you want to go all the way out, that's fine. If you go all the way out, there's going to be a depth of cut limit of sorts with where the scraper mechanism comes into play. So that's already a little bit of a drawback. If you need just to be able to put out just a little bit of blade or a lot of blade, as you need to adjust what part of your blade is cutting to be able to maximize getting a complete life out of your blade. You know, every now and then you get a dull spot on one side, you can move it around and get to a sharp spot. So I'm already not a huge fan of that. So now to change the blade, if I push the knife all the way out, in knife mode like this, there's a little yellow button here on the top. I can push that down and release the blade. And the first thing that I noticed about this is there's this interesting little keystone hole in the blade, which is not found, at least on my other ordinary razor blades that I've got. So let's take that one out, and then I'll just go ahead and pull a blade here out of my old knife. This has everything else is the same except for that keyhole, and let's see if this knife will accept it. And the answer to that looks like no. So that to me immediately is another detraction on this tool. So you have to have their special blades with the keystone. Another shortcoming of this knife is the lack of onboard blade storage. So it'd be great if I could have extra blades, because especially if I've been cutting drywall or even carpet, sometimes I've went through a ton of blades. And a sharp knife is always a safe knife, and so I love having extra blades. I need to add more to this knife here to be able to replace it. And so I like having a knife that's got replaceable blades, easily replaceable, stays sharp, and then I can even keep hook blades, serrated blades, or anything else I need here handy that I can quickly grab if I need to change it for whatever I'm doing without having to go someplace else to be able to get a special blade. Can I get serrated blades, hook blades, or whatever else with this special notch in it? I don't know. Let me know in the comments below if you've got an idea about that. So for about $19, is this tool worth it? I don't know, maybe. For what it is, the fact that you can also scrape potentially has a lot of value, because when it comes to scrapers, I've had kind of a long love-hate relationship with different scrapers. There's these kind of scrapers like this that work okay. They've got this kind of special blade that's a little bit weird. There's these cheap disposable ones that use the square blades, sort of like old-fashioned men's razors. You can see this one's all rusty. And then I've had other ones that have a keystone on the back, so I could attach this to a screwdriver handle and be able to scrape something away. This one here, hand tighten, and every now and then having these plastic scraper blades is awesome. I've loved having these plastic scraper blades that fit. And so in the past, the scraper blades that I've turned to have always been the rectangular ones rather than a utility, and kept them separate. Or of course, there's just a good old-fashioned plastic disposable scraper, putty knife, whatever you want to call it, that you can also pick up. All right, so I went and grabbed my wife's kitchen scale to be able to weigh the knife here and give it a quick comparison. So I'm going to leave this in grams just to be able to compare the weight. So my go-to standard Milwaukee knife checks in at 141 grams. For those of you keeping track at home, that's about 0.31 pounds. So 141 grams. And then now here's the new Toughbuilt knife, checking in at 216 grams. So we're looking at a little more than 70 grams heavier with no extra blades on board. So now one of the next things that I want to do is to see, what are the odds if I drop this that this is going to break? It's got a lifetime warranty on it if you register it. And to me, knives are tools that are going to take abuse and could get dropped, could get, dinged up. And so initially, there is a nice little spot here that you could attach a string to this and tie this onto your tool belt. That's really nice. My old tool doesn't actually have a spot for something like that. So props to them on adding that feature to this tool. That's pretty slick. I like that. But something else I want to know is that if I drop this, because of the way I have to be able to actually manually unlock this, and there's a positive detent holding this retracted to keep it safe. I mean, granted, there is a little spot right here that I've had my pocket snagged on multiple times and torn multiple pant pockets with, from that little notch there. We each have to pick and choose our battles for what we like and don't like. And then on here, this is completely retracted, so you don't get that same pant pocket issue. But since this does have a positive lock on it, I'm hopeful that if I drop this, the blade doesn't come out, because if I hit this button, there's not much there, and there's a little bit of a spring, and that spring does help to pull it back. But let's just see what happens if we go ahead and drop this on the floor. And just to keep this fun, I'm going to drop it with it in scraper mode. All right, here we go. We got the tool here. This is about waist high. It's in scraper mode. Pretend that I'm working on something, And oh no, the knife just slipped and fell. Let's see what happened. All right, so after falling, here's what the damage looks like. The blade split off, and maybe you saw that little fragment go flying there, which is a good reminder to be wearing safety glasses anytime you're using a knife. But this actually came right out of that clipping there. I'm a little disappointed the fact that it actually came out of the little keystone that's supposed to hold it in place for scraping. I would have thought that would have been a little bit of a higher quality to be able to hold that in place there. If I put this back around here after this drop, there's the blade. And let's see if I can lock this back in place. There we go. That's back in place for cutting. That feels pretty positive. The fact that the edge of the blade broke doesn't bother me that much, other than the fact that obviously it sent debris flying, because blades, sometimes they're strong, but then that comes at the expense of them also being brittle. So all right, so now we're going to pretend that we're cutting, and for some reason this falls out of my hand, and it's in cutting mode, and all right, so that looks like that held up reasonably well. The blade did not retract back in, it stayed out. And with that edge of that scraper there broken off, I could still use this in scraper mode. And keep on going. So back on the workbench, when we look at the knife after it being dropped a couple of times, it's not too bad for the wear. Obviously, this is brand new and only had a couple drops on it. And I would expect that this would end up covered in paint, dirt, grime, debris, or whatever. And let's take a look at the scraping action. Let's go ahead and stick with that slightly broken blade here. And I've got some painted, like this junk paint at Scrape It 2x4. Now remember, this is not going to be quite as good as a wood chisel if you're trying to chisel things away. This is meant to be a surface scraper. Let's try flipping it over. And if I flip it over with the button side down, I have to use a really steep angle before that begins to scrape. If I put the back side down, I'm at maybe a 30-degree angle, give or take, for the blade to the surface, which isn't bad. I can obviously increase the angle, but I can't go much below that about 30 degrees right there for that scraping. Now, obviously, depending on what you're scraping, it's going to affect how much effort you need to put into. But if you're just trying to get dried paint off of glass, this would be great. All right, so let's wrap up and talk about this one last time here. So for $19 and some change, give or take, is this tool worth it? I'm going to go with maybe. I think there's definitely a place for this. If you need to switch back and forth between a scraper and a utility knife, I don't know of any other tool in the market that has this little trick that it has in the book for being able to go back and forth. But to me, the biggest downsides seem to be twofold. Number one, the need for these specialty blades, and I'm not really sure what the entire selection is for blades with that keystone hole to work with the scraper. How long will blades with that keystone style be produced? Are there other manufacturers? Because you can buy generic knockoff blades from anybody dirt cheap, because sometimes you just go through a lot of blades on some projects. That's just what it is, and I want to know that I can buy enough blades to keep a sharp blade in my knife. Which brings me to my final bit, is the lack of onboard storage. Like, I've got to carry this and this to go do a job. And I'm not sure I'm a fan of that. I want my all-in-one tool that has it all. Like, this is so close. I feel like there's definitely room on the backside here with a little bit more thought they could have or figured out a way to be able to have some blades stored on board the tool. There's definitely room to do it, and I would more than welcome the added weight from adding a extra little door back here. Even make it rubber molded, if you will, and put the blades in it. That would be fantastic. And then the other concern that I've got is this giant mechanism with a hole in it, that if this gets covered in spray paint, gets covered in dirt and grime, how well is this going to be able to move and flip to be able to do its little fun trick? I don't know. But, you know, for 20 bucks, this is kind of a one-of-a-kind tool that certainly has this unique niche. And if you're going back and forth between two dedicated tools, this might be able to save you some time. So I'm going to go back to what I said before. Is this worth it? Maybe. Maybe. Do I regret my purchase? Eh. So now I'm curious, what do you think about this? Do you love this, hate this idea? Is it too much of an all-in-one gimmick, or is it an actual problem solver to you? I don't know. Feel free to chime in down below with your thoughts or comments on this tool. If you like content like this, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Click the subscribe button if you haven't already done so. Thanks for watching, and as always, have a great day. Bye.